This is the story behind the Ducks, a story of edge, an adventure of love, a journey of lessons, and hopefully a message of inspiration. To start off, we have to do a little backstory on the gym and also who I was as a kid. 10 years ago, I started my journey as a sports performance coach, a newly graduated exercise science major hired on as a part-time coach for Edge Sports Performance. I was coming off an internship ran by one of Edge's previous owners, Tony Duckwall. In that time, I was coaching for the gym a few hours per week, all while working at Dick's Sporting Goods. Very quickly from the start of being hired, we were able to open up a second location. That location doesn't exist anymore because we outgrew it very fast from the start. It was almost like running a gym out of a closet with a small track that ended up having a big hole at the end. That was due to it being too short to really do sprints down it and athletes sometimes running into it. But we made it work. I was picking up hours and we had the original location running still out of the volleyball center. Tony would spend a bunch of time out there, especially 6 months out of the year during the club season. And I was slowly picking up responsibilities and hours over at the River City location. Over those 2 years, I was able to grow, learn, and develop enough through the gym to make it my full-time job. And promptly after those 2 years, looking at 2016 now, we moved into the current gym over at King Louie's because we definitely needed the space. But before we continue, we need to go back a few years. And I promise this story will really pick up. When I was a kid, more so when I became a teenager, I was incredibly shy. I couldn't stand public speaking or being called on in class. Make me read out loud and I was a wreck. My voice would change when talking, my face would get incredibly red, and I would start to think, well, everyone can definitely see that I'm nervous. That would just snowball into more nerves and make it worse. There was even a teacher in high school, which I will not say his name even though I should, that would almost bully me. Several classes, almost making sure he would call on me in class if he knew I would have a hard time answering the questions. It was the first class of the day at 8 a.m. I wasn't necessarily a morning person, and that in combination of it being an AP class, it wasn't an easy class to start with. There are some class periods that I thoroughly remember the onslaught of him asking me questions and almost attacking me. He just kept pushing me to become more and more uncomfortable. A couple of my friends still to this day, when I send them this audio and they hear this part of the story, they will for sure be smiling when listening because they too know those class periods and that teacher because it was so apparent. We were able to loosely make it a running joke at the time between us, but it was still embarrassing. That's just an insight of one story among several seared into my brain of me being a shy kid and feeling embarrassed about it. But there is a redemption to this because I am not shy anymore for the most part, and I have made one of my biggest weaknesses one of my greatest assets. And I did so by becoming a coach. Initially by becoming a soccer coach for Mockingbird when I was 18, my freshman year of college. I knew I needed to get over my fears. I knew I needed to work on the skill set of communicating with others in public or in an open forum. At times in which I started coaching and I was sweating, it may have looked like it was from the summer heat inside of an indoor soccer facility, but it was more so from my nerves. It was an easy way to mask the sweat, hide my red face, and to push through that fear. Now, let's go back to 2016. In this year time frame of moving the gym, taking on bigger space and more responsibilities, I thought it would be a good idea to start marketing or displaying the gym in different ways, especially more so in a video format, putting out YouTube videos, editing clips for content, and being creative in how we were promoting the gym, which was going to require me to put in time into creating those videos, time into learning new skills, and effort into something I believe would work to improve Edge as a whole. But I was quickly told that's not a good idea. I was told just to work on coaching, keep getting better at coaching, and hone in on that skill. The other stuff isn't going to matter, it won't matter. Almost that it was stupid, which to an extent I can respect. I was still a young coach, 2 years into sports performance and 4 years of overall coaching experience. And the quote that I was told at that time was, "You don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none." Again, you don't want to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I say that twice because it's going to be a very important quote in my journey later on. Flash forward into the chaos of this story, something that I can't or could never skip over and must pay respect to. A few key turning points and components to everything but negative in nature. I want this story to overall be inspirational and happy, but as in life, you can't always have the good times without the bad. We are taught some of the most important lessons through struggle, through making mistakes and learning from both of them. In 2017, about a year of us moving into King Louie's, Tony unfortunately passed away from cancer. It was a devastation not just from a personal standpoint, but a very communal one. So many people knew him, loved him, and respected him. In that time, there were a bunch of people that rallied together for Tony, the gym, and for me, Jody, his wife, my parents, coaches, athletes, Mike, adult training clients, more so friends, and most importantly, for the sake of this transition, for the rest of my life, and the happiest parts of the story, my wife, Lauren. I met Lauren, which I do not call her Lauren, I call her Lo, in 2017, about 7 months after we moved into the current gym. In that time of dating, when I would leave her house, there used to be a mirror hanging up right next to the door. And on the border of that mirror, there were different sections depicting various vacations or destinations. Early on, when I thought she had to be the one, I was going to marry her. I would take pictures of us hugging one another as I was leaving in front of that mirror. At this time, I was taking them unknowingly to her because her back was to the mirror. Over time, I had to have taken 8 to 12 pictures until she kind of found out I was taking them. Innocently enough, at the time, the meaning to her was more so I was just taking simple pictures, but the meaning to me was more. The meaning was or is in relation to the movie Up. And in that movie, at the beginning, you see two childhood friends imagining and playing out trips around the world. Those two grow up together, becoming closer, all while continuously creating imaginary adventures that they one day hope to go on. Thus creating a book that on the front read, Our Adventure Book, which they were going to take pictures of their future trips and put in there. They get married, have kids, go through life, have a great life, the ups and the downs. But they don't necessarily get to go on all the extravagant adventures they imagined as kids, to extraordinary places around the world. But later on, when the husband is old, he finds that adventure book and realizes that the wife, the whole time, was putting pictures of their adventures in the book. Not just the big ones, but the small ones. The moments small and far in between the vacations. The simple moments that at the time may not seem like the most important, but in hindsight are the moments we should all cherish the most. The message of that story to me is that life isn't just about the big adventures, because they're nothing in comparison to the smaller ones that happen every day. January 2020. Lo shows me a video of a golden retriever with his paws up on a fence, eyes squinted, tail wagging, just as happy as can be, looking at his owner. The owner calling out and saying, "Hi, Squinty." Then from that video, Lo shows me their page on Instagram showing a litter of puppies up for sale from the farm in which that dog lived. In more research looking at the puppies and the breeder, we contacted them. That same weekend, mind you, she showed me on a Tuesday, we drove up to Toledo. About a 4.5-hour drive, so a 9-hour round trip, quick stop, and back to get our current dog, Kylo. Also, I am never someone to make quick decisions about small stuff, but especially about something with that big, with that much responsibility. But it is one of the best decisions we ever made. For those of you that don't know, we have a dog named Kylo. He's 4 now, he's an English cream golden retriever, and he is an angel. And yes, he squints just like that dog. In taking over the gym, there were a lot of challenges. I was thrown into the deep end and told to swim. I had help, but there's no denying there was a lot of things I had to learn, figure out, and adapt to. COVID was a lot of fun for gyms around this part of the timeline. It was a great time to have a dog, but rough to run a gym. And over those years, treading water, learning, working endless hours, and pushing myself to make the gym as successful as possible, I ended up at an interesting point. How, as a gym, do you market yourself in the industry today, separate you from other gyms? How, as a gym, can I maximize retention and attention on the gym, or better yet, the brand of what Edge is? And that place that I ended up at, yet again, from all those years ago, was making videos, starting a podcast, putting myself out there, becoming the jack of all trades. I don't think you can ever really be a master of coaching, because there's always something new to learn. I was confidently told to not do any of the stuff I was about to do, even though it was something I believed would work, something that I knew would work, and at this point really wish I started doing earlier. I rebranded the gym, creating all new logos and imagery. I started constantly editing and uploading videos to all platforms. In all of my spare time when not coaching, I taught myself how to use Photoshop, how to shoot and edit video, how to create content that drew in attention. I started a podcast to which you are listening to an episode right now. Countless hours of work to build a skill set of growing the gym, growing the brand of Edge, and developing a portfolio of content that undeniably shows the passion I have for what I do. And it works. I love doing it. The gym is doing amazing. And part of the reason you're even listening to this episode is because of all that work, all of that creativity, the ducks. The redemption of that whole arc isn't just the success of overcoming the struggles of taking over the gym. It also goes back to that one quote. A jack of all trades and master of none? Well, guess what? That person was wrong. That's not even the whole quote. The whole quote is, a jack of all trades, a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. In rebranding the gym in 2022 with all new logos, which you currently see, I put a ton of time into what everything should look like. All of my own original designs, putting my own personality and spin on the imagery and brand of Edge as a gym. The E is designed to look more like a superhero emblem or symbol, sharp, strong, and undeniable. I'd already started doing the podcast, and it was actually previously called The Conversations Between the Sets. But I wanted to make a change. I wanted to change it to something that went along with the new rebranding and logos I had redone. Over a few days of brainstorming and asking my wife some advice, we came up with the name of the Adventure to the Edge podcast, a connection between the gym and the story from Up that I previously talked about. A title that is a little more fitting for the episodes that we are doing now and all the topics in those episodes. The next step was to create the thumbnail, the picture for the podcast, which I told my wife I would like to put Kylo as a superhero or something like that for the podcast. Amazingly enough, within the hour, she sends me this little sketch of Kylo, his back turned and a cape on. It's the thumbnail we still use today, and inside of that cape, as I digitize everything, I put the E emblem right in the middle. You see, I think most would agree that dogs are one of the greatest things put on this planet. That dogs in so many ways are the superheroes to our adventures. As a golden retriever, he very much embodies the essence of loving the small moments. You leave the house for 10 minutes, and when you come back, he greets you like you've been gone forever. And Kylo has one very distinct feature about him, and that is he loves ducks. He has a big yellow stuffed duck toy that he carries around all the time and even uses as a pillow. Ironically, as we've named all of his toys, Kylo's duck is actually named Goose. He also has a duck hat that he wears, a duck robe that we put on him after he gets a bath. Or rather, the robe that Lo puts on him after she gives him a bath while they're listening to Disney songs. It's one of my favorite moments. If Lo and I had an adventure book, there would definitely be a picture of Kylo smiling while getting a bath with his mom. Ducks have always just been something that he's been drawn to since we got Goose years ago. Last flashback in time to October 2021. My wife and I are about to get married. At this point, when going back, I hadn't started giving out ducks to athletes, the podcast wasn't a thing, and I just started running the gym on my own for the most part post the majority of the COVID nonsense. But Kylo is already a duck boy at this point and also the ring bearer at our wedding. He had the rings tied to him and he ran down the aisle to us. As I'm standing at the end of the aisle, right before Lo is about to walk out, her brother is standing next to me, the one who is also marrying us. He taps me on the arm and hands me a small piece of paper. I open up the paper, and printed on it was one of the pictures I took in front of the mirror. I turn it over, and handwritten on the back of it, it says, "You will always be my greatest adventure," with little balloons drawn at the top. Right in that moment, that very short but big moment, I look up to see Lo coming down the aisle. I see her and very slowly start to realize the music playing. It was one of the songs from the movie Up. She had changed the song without me knowing. When we got engaged, I told her about the meaning of those pictures and its connection to the movie's message. She took that to heart and gave me the greatest surprise on our wedding day. This is a moment I will never forget, a moment that still to this day I tear up talking about. Now let's finish this story. About a year later, in October of 2022, I started this crazy project of giving out ducks to athletes. Originally, each duck had a cape on them, made out of felt, and an edge emblem pressed onto each one. This resembling the thumbnail from the podcast and everything kind of connecting duck, cape, dog, story, adventure. I would give all of my athletes 2 ducks and a card that read, "Get a duck, give a duck. Keep 1 duck and give the other to a superhero in your life." It could be a friend, family member, or anyone you are grateful to have in your adventure. With the objective of this project to not only be a way of marketing the gym through a fun concept, but a way to spread love, for athletes to connect with others in being grateful. I think now the Duck Project has made it to its final changes and stage of what it should be. Unfortunately, making the capes is becoming a little too time consuming, and giving out 2 ducks was getting pretty extensive. I was having athletes, new athletes, showing up to the gym asking for ducks right out of the gate because the project was doing so well just by word of mouth. Silly in design, but effective in execution. And this is the final stage, this story, this audio. The ducks have always been about spreading love and appreciation. They've always been rooted in the same story, but I haven't always been able to tell their true overall meaning, or each athlete this elaborate story. Why ducks? Why give them out? I think you can loosely gather a lot of the connections already from what we've already gone over. But let's put this all together. The steps, lessons, obstacles, and triumphs to become who you are what you want to be, is the journey. Whether it's a small task or a big one, becoming a better athlete, being the best parent you can, winning one game, or anything you set out to do. There will always be those people, or even dogs like Kylo, that influence us, support us, and are superheroes in their own way. Superheroes to our journey, at least, in ways that they may have never known. My wife, my parents, my dog, and so many others have been heroes in my journey. A journey of becoming who I am today, and a job that I never knew I would love. From a shy kid who pushed through barriers, a college student who didn't even know what they wanted to do for a career, thrown into an unimaginable situation, forced to figure it all out. The jack of all trades, the dog dad to a ducky boy, the husband to the best wife. All of this combined into one story, one project of encouraging you to let at least one superhero in your life know how much you love and appreciate their support and the influence they've had on you. A story to encourage you to live your life as if you were the superhero in your own journey, to not only others, but yourself, to be proud of yourself, and to make life an adventure.